Hi there, my name is James Nathan. I won MasterChef in 2008 and I'm going to show you a really great spring recipe to do now using lamb neck. It's going to be a herb brined lamb neck fillet with a wild garlic salsa verde and some new potatoes with a little bit of rhubarb in there. I mean, it's wild garlic, for those of you who don't know, is a bit like this. As it gets a bit older, it starts to put out a white flower, but it's basically a green leaf, and it gives you a very garlicky, sort of spinachy, garlicky flavour. And the woodlands are just covered in it. It's a carpet. It's the best thing to forage. It's abundant. The only thing to take a note of is just to maybe, instead of tearing it out of the ground and pulling the roots up, I take a little knife and just trim it, snip it. And it's also important when foraging to wash things, because you don't know where that's been or what animals have been across it. The other ingredient we're using is lamb neck fillet, really nice cut of meat, but it can be very tough. So we're going to brine it, and we're going to put a load of flavour in that brine, and that just helps the meat to be broken down, impart some flavour to it with a lovely herby brine, and also give it some juiciness as well. And we're using ingredients that are just bursting forth at this time of year. Wild garlic is abundant in the spring, and for me, it really heralds the start of spring. It's the first ingredient that you see that really notes that change from winter, when there's not much left in the garden and the new spring crops are coming through. And I think three things come together in spring. You get wild garlic, you get mint bursting out of the ground as well, and you get rhubarb. I mean, these things go well together. I always say that things that come out of the ground together usually go in the pan together. These are great ingredients to combine. So let's do that. Let's make my dish. Let me show you how to do it. It's really exciting. So I'm going to make the salsa verde now, and this is an amazingly zinging spring recipe. We've got 30 grams each of parsley and wild garlic, 5 grams of fresh mint, 2 teaspoons of Dijon mustard, 2 anchovy fillets, 30 grams each of capers and gherkins, 3 tablespoons of sherry vinegar, 150 ml of oil, and a garlic clove. And I find the best way to make this dish is to use a pestle and mortar. And what I first of all do is then really finely shred all the herbs. So I find the best way to do this is to take a little pinch of salt and then put all the hardest ingredients in there first, which is the garlic, anchovy fillets. Start pounding those to a nice paste, then add the capers, chopped gherkins, and put the mint in, and then start adding the herbs. And help this by letting it down with the vinegar and the mustard. And there's the parsley going in. And then you slowly add the oil. Hi, so making the brine for this lamb dish is very simple. I've got the ingredients here. We've got some garlic, lemon, and then some herbs, which is bay, thyme, rosemary, black peppercorns, salt and sugar. There's 50 grams of salt and 50 grams of sugar. I've got brown sugar there, but you don't have to use that. It's just so you can see the difference between the two. And then I've got a litre of water. I've got 500 ml hot and 500 cold, and that just allows you to work sort of quickly and smart, because you want the brine to be cool as quickly as possible. So if you just dissolve your salt and sugar in the hot water, and then I add the cold water to that, and then it's already cooling it down quite nicely. And then we're going to put in a teaspoon of black peppercorns, 3 garlic cloves, just kind of cut in half. And then I like half a lemon juice, and then use the spent lemon in the brine. You know, you want all that flavour from the zest. About 6 bay leaves, dried I'm using. Then you want to impart as much flavour to the meat as you can. So, you know, a good sprig of thyme, and then rosemary this time of year is just coming into flower. It's beautiful, really just budding fresh herb. So I mean, again, I want to put a fair bit of that in. I'm using the whisk just to bruise up the herbs a bit, release some flavour. It's all about just getting a very flavoursome brine. So we'll let that cool, and then we'll get the meat into that. So the reason we're going to brine the meat is because it gives a lovely flavour to the meat. We've got loads of herbs in there, we've got the lemon in there, we've got salt, we've got sugar, we've got garlic, all really great flavours that go with lamb. The other reason is it's going to help to break the meat down and stop it being so tough. Neck fillet is a particularly tough cut of meat, and breaking it down with a brine is a really great way to soften it up. And the other reason is it becomes more succulent. It takes on a bit of the brine and loses some of its sort of water content, makes it sort of juicier, and helps just get a really great finish on the meat. So the brine's ready now, it's nice and cool. Tastes amazing. You've got salty, sweet, really aromatic herbs, a little tang from lemon, the bay. It's really good. So now we've got some beautiful Welsh neck fillets, and I'm just going to cover them in the brine with all the pieces as well and leave them in there for 4 hours. So now I'm going to cook the potatoes. I've got 750 grams of new potatoes and a couple of sprigs from mint from the garden and a teaspoon of salt. And you literally just cook them until they're just tender. And I find the best way to do the potatoes is to bring them to the boil, turn them down and simmer them, and give them about 10 to 12 minutes simmering. Drain them and let them cool at room temperature. And then we're going to chop them up, add some rhubarb, add a bit more fresh chopped mint, and serve them just lightly sautéed in a bit of oil. So I'm just going to do the garnish for the potatoes. And I've got some beautiful rhubarb here, some mint, which I'm going to shred up. And I'm just going to finely dice this rhubarb, and I've sort of sliced through it all the way apart from the end bit, so you can get some nice little dice out of it. So we're just going to finely shred this mint. So with the diced rhubarb, I'm just going to give it a quick blanch because we're going to just saute that with the potatoes and mint. So I've got a teaspoon of salt in there, a teaspoon of sugar, and then just pop that in there for about 30 seconds. So after about 4 hours, I take the neck fillets out of the brine, lay the kitchen paper, and dry them. The best way to get a meat to fry and to crisp up a bit is to get it dry, and then it's going to fry better, obviously. So we're all ready to start finishing our dish. The potatoes, which we cooked till they were tender, I take the liberty of dicing those up. We've got our blanched rhubarb. We've got a little bit more sliced wild garlic, just a small handful. We're going to sear off the lamb, and we're going to add the Salsa Verde to plate up. So what I do is I get the oven very hot, 220 degrees centigrade, and I put my frying pan in there, making sure my handle of my frying pan can withstand that temperature. So it gets the pan really hot, and also be very careful, obviously, if you're taking a hot pan out of the oven, don't forget that handle is going to stay hot for a long time. But it gives you a really nuclear hot pan, which is what you want to just set that colour into that lamb. It's had the brine, it's got sugar and salts in there, it's going to caramelise beautifully, and those flavours in lamb, that sort of lovely crusted golden brown coat is what we want. So let's get my pan. So I've got my pan, I'm putting that onto a very high heat. I'm going to turn that right up. You might want to put the oil in the pan and drop the meat in, but the trouble is you can splash. And I try to avoid doing that. So just rubbing oil onto the meat really helps that. And that pan is now murder hot, so we're going to put our meat in there. I find a very good tip when cooking meat is to keep it turning. Give it about 15 seconds aside. And the reason to keep the meat turning like that is because you want the heat to sort of gently penetrate each side of the meat. If you just give it loads of heat on one side, then turn it over, it's very hard to know how far the heat's travelled. If you keep turning it, you get a burst, a burst, a burst, a burst on each side, and it slowly travels through the whole meat, and you're much likely to get a much more even colour. If you keep doing this turn technique, you get a lovely result. So that's had, 2 or 3 minutes turning. I'm going to put it in the hot oven now for about 10 minutes. So our meat's had about 10 minutes in the hot oven, and it's very important when you cook your meat to rest. I'm going to get it out and rest it. And there we are, we'll just leave it on our resting rack and carve it in a few minutes and serve it with our beautiful rhubarb potatoes. So for the potatoes, it couldn't be simpler really. You've got the pre-cooked potatoes, got a hot pan here, a little bit of rapeseed oil. Potatoes go in, you can hear them sizzling, so they've got a bit of heat in there. And you want to put some mint and wild garlic in there, but the whole thing with that is you want to keep it green and vibrant and succulent. So I keep it right to the end, throw it into the hot pan as I'm taking it off the heat. The rhubarb though, you want to give that a little bit of heat. So that can go in. So the potatoes have been sautéing away here, just for a couple of minutes, just to heat them up, take the temperature off of it. And now I'm about ready to take them off. So I'm going to add some chopped wild garlic and some chopped mint. And then you just get this wonderful development of flavours. You've got zingy rhubarb, lovely soft potato, hot spicy wild garlic and that aromatic mint. And it's just with lamb, that just gives you such a varied texture and flavour combination. It's a really interesting dish. There's so much fun. So let's do that. So now we're ready to plate up. We've got our potatoes. You want to sort of enhance white space on a plate by keeping everything nice and sort of organised on the plate, leaving lots of white space. And you get a little pile of these potatoes. It's so often what you don't put on the plate that really makes the difference to how good a dish looks. Now it's time to carve our meat. And when carving this meat, I would go quite thin with it because it still can be quite a tough cut. But I think that's cooked perfectly. You've still got a little pink flush to it, but it's tender and it's got that caramelised bark to it. It's a really delicious piece of meat. And it's just got all that flavour imparted to it by the rich brine that we put it on. I'm just going to use my little bit of kitchen paper here just before I put it on the plate, just to soak up any juice that might be escaping. And then that's not going to bleed all over our plate. So really have a look at this now. And then I would take this and, lovely wild garlic. All our beautiful spring flavours in there. We got wild garlic, we got capers, we got mint, we got all kinds of gorgeousness, lovely bit of oil. And then what we want to try and do is just have a little flourish over the plate perhaps. And then I think these are invaluable. Everyone's into edible flowers these days. I just think a little scattering of the white wild garlic flowers just really picks up the dish. It couldn't be more simple. That lovely Welsh lamb neck fillet, wild garlic salsa verde with the beautiful new potatoes with rhubarb and mint and wild garlic. What a stunning dish just for spring. Perfect. I've thoroughly enjoyed doing this for you. Please visit my website chefjamesnathan.co.uk and visit me on YouTube and subscribe and like my channel. It's James Nathan. I'm sure you'll find me on YouTube and there'll be links attached to this. All the best.